Hello everybody. We welcome you back for the special edition of our regular monthly ISO certification YouTube update from Lakshy Management Consultant Private Limited. I am sure you are benefiting from our regular updates on YouTube, wherein we regularly try to help you with different ISO standards, implementation requirements, and different clauses. In this edition of YouTube update, we are going to focus on very important standard ISO 9001. Now this is a standard everybody knows, the base standard. Before you go for any of the business excellence standard implementation, it is expected that you have the base standard ISO 9001 quality management system in place. Now this standard, as I mentioned, one of the very important, most important standard, but is most of the time poorly implemented. The reason? Either you have not understood the requirements correctly, either the consultant has not asked you to implement it properly and it was misinterpreted, either there were no proper resources and the system was designed in such a way that it become very bulky and non-practical. We as an organization with more than 4,000 clients in more than 50 countries, we can tell you how best you can implement ISO 9001 standard. What are the requirements and what is the practical approach you need to follow so that your system becomes beneficial to the organization. We always tell to all of our clients that ISO 9001 QMS is not just for the sake of certification. It is not a piece of paper that you get, but it is a system, it's a quality culture that you bring in and implement in the organization. Now in next 10 minutes time, I'm going to tell you the major critical requirements from ISO 9001 standard that you need to implement in your place. Please remember that the requirements we are going to share with you are applicable to any kind of organization, be it a manufacturing company, service company, trading company, IT company, hospital, hospitality industry, or a government organization. Number one, you need to have a quality policy statement in place. Quality policy which talks about your long-term vision and mission in place, where you want to see your company 10 years down the line, or rather how do you want your company to be perceived as in market in future. When you make a quality policy statement, it should essentially be covering your company's commitment towards customer, company's commitment towards employees, company's commitment towards continual improvement, and complying with all applicable legal regulatory requirements. Next, you should have process definition. Now this is very important part. Most of the companies that I have observed who are already certified, they do not understand the process approach correctly. What ISO 9001 standard says is, before you start implementing the requirements, spend couple of days in defining the process. What you need to do is define your complete organization and break it down into different departments. Each department is to be broken into different processes. Every process will have an input, it will have an output, and it will have its own process execution methodology. Define it, make different processes, identify process input and output. After that, for every process, you need to prepare a standard operating procedure. That means, how do you execute a process? Why do you need a standard operating procedure? Because you need to standardize your processes, standardize your activities. Because ultimate objective of ISO 9001 standard is to make sure that whatever output you are delivering is consistent in nature. Now, how do you achieve consistency? Consistency can only be achieved if, number one, you document your process. Number two, you make a culture in the organization that everybody who executes the process follows the defined way of process. And number three, you regularly improve it. So define your processes, provide training to everybody, and make sure everybody follows that. That is very important part. Number three, for each of the processes or the departments or at the corporate level, you need to have measurable and time-bound quality objectives. Quality objectives which are for say next 6 months time, next 1 year's time, which are a smart mechanism that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-bound. Make sure these quality objectives are in line with your company's yearly or next term objectives. These objectives are to make sure that the vision and mission of your organization gets aligned with the quality management system. Because sometimes it might happen that company will have its own business objectives and which is seldom represented or covered in quality management system. If that happens, you will not get benefit of the QMS. So make sure that the quality management system quality objectives gets aligned with your business objectives or corporate objectives. Now let's start with the HR requirements. Now we get this question from so many companies, mainly the smaller companies. They say we don't have HR department. How do we implement HR requirements? Our answer is very simple. I tell to my clients, it's okay, you don't have HR department, but HR activities do happen in your company. Even though you don't have a dedicated HR manager, somebody in your company currently looks after employee recruitment. Somebody in the company looks after the skill upgradation and skill enhancement of the people. Somebody in the company looks after the training requirement. So HR activities do happen, irrespective of whether you have a dedicated HR team, HR manager, or somebody is doing the multiple responsibility. That's okay. So for HR requirements of the ISO 9001 standard, you need to have the updated organization chart, number one. Number two, make sure that each designation in the organization chart has a specific roles, responsibility and authority. Make sure these roles, responsibility and authority are communicated to the people, all the employees. Number three, you need to make sure that you need to carry out a competence evaluation. What is competence evaluation? Competence evaluation means identify the ideal competence for each of the jobs, each of the designations in terms of education, experience and functional skills. With respect to ideal competence, carry out a mapping exercise and map current competence, existing competence of each of the employees with the ideal competence. That will give you a mechanism, a tool to identify gap in the competence. What is required in my employee for the different designations? Where do they stand? What is the gap? Now, in order to bridge the gap, you need to provide some training. Now, this training can be either an internal training or an external training. You need to figure out. After training is over, you need to maintain training records. And very important part, you need to carry out training effectiveness evaluation. This part was missing in most of the organization. So carry out training effectiveness evaluation, kind of pre-training competence, post-training competence. After training evaluation is over, your bulk of the HR requirements would be addressed with. Along with this, you need to have the quality objectives for our HR department and the standard operating procedures as per the process approach for our HR department. In addition to this, you can have n number of documentation and implementation from specific HR perspective that you want to do. But these requirements, what we just mentioned, are mandatory, without which you might face a difficulty in your ISO audit. On and above this, you are free to add anything, have whatever documentation you want. Coming to marketing department, the business development, sales. Now typically from our experience, we have seen that when it comes to the marketing people, the marketing department, they are slightly off-site when we talk of the requirements. The normal answer we receive is, I have my targets. I need to go in the field and meet with people. I will not have time and it will not be practical feasible for me to meet and all the documentation requirements of ISO. We say, gentlemen, don't worry. It's not difficult at all. What ISO 9001 standard does is, beauty of the ISO 9001 is, it will give you requirement. It will tell you what to do. It doesn't tell you how to do. You need to develop a mechanism that is based in the interest of your organization, the most practical and easy to implement. The first and very basic requirement of ISO 9001 for sales department would be inquiry management. You need to have a system in place wherein all the inquiries, whether you receive or you generate, are documented. It can be a CRM software, an Excel sheet, or a physical paper document up to your organization. Which date you receive inquiry from which client, what are the requirements, what quantity, what was your initial reply, your follow-ups, did it actually get converted into business, yes or no? If yes, what is the further work order or sales order you receive? If no, some kind of lost client analysis needs to be done. All the people do it, but we need to slightly formalize it, make it more sophisticated. Another requirement which a lot of people miss out, even the biggest of the companies miss out, is called as contract review. What is a contract review? Even though it is called as contract review, it is done before a contract is actually been executed between the customer and supplier. When a marketing person sends a communication to a prospective customer, what ISO 9001 standard wants is, before a confirmation is given to the client, a commitment is given to the client, there should be an internal discussion in the company about company's capability to meet customers' requirement. Sometimes it do happen that in order to close a deal, get a new client, salesperson or marketing department might overcommit to a client, either in terms of quality, quantity, timing, delivery, or any other parameter. Now what happens in this case? Company will get a business, but when it goes to the operations department or the production department, they will say, oh, we cannot do this. We need minimum 2 months. How did you promise 15 days to the client? Now what happens in this case? The company gets a bad name. It's a reputation of the company at stake. So in order to make sure that this kind of situation do not arise, ISO 9001 standard wants that before a commitment is made to the client, there has to be an internal discussion between all the stakeholding departments of the company. They all should give a go ahead. Yes, this is what the sales department or marketing department is proposing. We all are okay. If we get a project, if we get a confirmation or sales order confirmation from the client, we as a team, we as our department would be in the position to fulfill our responsibility, our contribution. Very important. Another requirement from marketing department would be the communication, customer communication. It essentially covers two requirements, two parameters. First is customer complaint management. The standard has put this under marketing department's responsibility, but any other department in company can do this. There has to be a formal process wherein any complaint we receive from any customer through any mode, be it through email, phone, fax, letter, or walk-in complaints, any kind of complaint we receive must be documented with correction, root cause analysis, corrective action. Another requirement would be customer feedback management. The marketing department is expected to identify the best mechanism they can utilize to collect feedback from the customers. Now, customer feedback has to be a formal exercise, regular exercise. You divide the mechanism, the physical customer feedback or the customer feedback that you host online. Customer can go online and give you feedback, or you call up your customer and take the feedback, or you visit your customer and take feedback. You decide the mechanism. Feedbacks have to be collected, to be analyzed, and some improvement actions are to be taken. So these three requirements from marketing department, apart from their objectives and standard operating procedure. Now coming to purchase department, there are 5 requirements that we are looking at from purchase department. Number 1, there has to be process of supplier registration and initial evaluation. So identify parameters using which you will evaluate your suppliers and find out whether they can meet your requirements or not. So a formal process of supplier evaluation has to be in place. This can be a one-time activity. Second is, you need to have the supplier re-evaluation. That means at a regular interval, somebody from your organization who is dealing with the supplier will carry out a regular evaluation of the supplier, re-evaluation of the supplier in terms of several parameters like quality, quantity, timely delivery, pricing, market credibility, terms and conditions, attractiveness, or some other parameters you feel are important for a company. Identify those parameters, reevaluate your suppliers, say every 6 months or after completion of every order or every 1 year. Try to do some kind of statistical analysis out of it. Organize your suppliers in grade A, grade B, grade C suppliers and take a necessary action. Another important requirement would be the jointly between stores department, warehousing department and purchasing department is incoming inspection planning. For all the raw material, all the items you are purchasing, the one-time exercise you need to do is identify the incoming inspection plan for each of the raw materials and items. When you receive an item or a raw material, what you are supposed to check, how you will check it, who will check it, what is the sampling mechanism, that needs to be identified and must be communicated to all the related people in the company. So that is incoming inspection planning. After incoming inspection planning, what comes is the execution of incoming inspection. So when you receive any item, you need to make sure that as per the incoming inspection, somebody has actually been checking it and it's been implemented and the records are created. So you should have incoming inspection records as well. Along with this, you will have your purchasing SOP for different processes in your purchase and your objectives, quality objectives. Now a very important part for any organization is operations, the production or operations or service execution, depending on kind of company you are. The most important part for operations or production or service execution would be planning. You should have some kind of quality plan which says that from start to finish, be it a production or service execution, how the entire delivery will happen. From the moment the sales department confirms the order, you receive confirmation till you complete the delivery of product or service. What is the complete production or operations life cycle? Kind of plan has to be in place. Second is, you should have regular weekly, daily, monthly production or service execution planning. What I'm supposed to do, who will do it, and what is expected. Another important requirement would be availability of work instruction. You need to make sure that at relevant functions within your operations and service execution department, you have necessary work instructions or guidelines identified and which is being made available to the people. If it is a shop floor, you make it available next to the workstation, have it identified or translated into the local language so that people understand it. Apart from this, you need to have the in-depth maintenance, preventive maintenance, breakdown maintenance procedure, have preventive maintenance plan, preventive maintenance records and breakdown maintenance records. Also, you need to implement the calibration management system in place, identify all the measurement and measurement equipments that you are using in your organization, what kind of calibration frequency you need to identify as per the manufacturer's guidance, maintain records, show the compliance to the calibration requirements. On and above this, you need to have data about the 6 mandatory procedures, that is control of documents, control of records, internal audit, corrective action, preventive action, and have the management involvement, management review meetings, internal audit, records for those. So if you do this, your ISO certification would be an easy activity without too much of strain, and it will be get integrated with your existing business process. So that this is what from Lakshy Management Consultant Private Limited. We wanted all the organizations across the world know that ISO 9001 is a value added exercise. If you follow these simple steps, you can get certified very easily with value addition to the company. If you need any assistance for ISO 9001 certification for your company, you can visit us at www.iso-consultants.com or www.lakshy.com, or you can send us an email at info@lakshy.com. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, for your time, and we look forward to partner your ISO certification exercise. Thank you very much.